trust me on this one. If you are feeling behind in your 30s, this is how you stop. You don't feel behind in your 30s because you're not there yet. You feel behind in your 30s because you're still letting Instagram decide where there even is. But we're not doing that anymore. We are washing our hands, starting a fresh slate, and we are getting you out of this feeling like you are not good enough, like you have not achieved enough, like you are behind in life just because you're in your 30s and you're unmarried, child-free, and maybe you haven't bought your own home yet. My 5-year relationship ended just before I turned 29, and a few weeks later, my best friend announced that he was having a baby, and then a couple of weeks after that, my younger brother got engaged. And let me tell you, at 29 years old, about to turn 30, suddenly finding myself single with no home of my own because I'd been living abroad, I felt like I had messed up my life. I felt like I didn't have my shit together. I felt like I could not be more behind in where I was supposed to be by the time I was 30 if I had tried. I'd expected to be engaged. I'd expected to have a place to call mine, even if it was just renting a really nice little place. I had not expected to be living back home, single, without kid by the time I turned 30. Yeah, that is the card that I was dealt, and now I'm 34. I'm kind of okay with how life went. When I was going through this breakup and when I was feeling behind because the people that I was surrounded with were getting married and having children, I found myself scrolling a lot on Instagram, checking out things that my friends were doing on Facebook, and that just made things worse. That just made me feel like I was even more behind because day after day there'd be another scam photo, day after day there'd be another proposal announcement, day after day someone would change their name or their status on Facebook to married. And after some wallowing and some crying and some emotional moments on the couch with the Sex and the City box set and a tub of ice cream, I realised that this isn't how I wanted to feel about myself. I realised that actually 30 isn't old. 30 is not even a third of your life. People are living a lot longer now. 30 is still young. As you enter your 30s, there are so many more opportunities. You start to feel more confident in yourself naturally because you stop giving such a shit about what people think of you. Your 30s are a time for exploration and for getting clear on what you actually want and for enjoying yourself. And for me, my 30s were not about boys anymore because that's what I'd spent my 20s worrying about. When I had an honest conversation with myself about how I was feeling and got really clear on why I was feeling so behind in life, I realised there was something that was taking over my daily life, and that was my scrolling habits. I realised that every single day I was looking at this content, I was seeing the baby announcements, I was seeing the homeowner announcements, seeing the engagements, the proposals, the weddings, and every time I saw those things, it made me feel a little bit more behind, a little bit less than, a little bit like I wasn't good enough and I'd messed up my life. And I was so focused on how other people were living their lives that I wasn't focusing on where I was in my life. I wasn't focusing on the fact that I didn't own a home because I'd spent all my money traveling the world in my 20s. I didn't have a ring on my finger because my relationship had just ended. I didn't have children because I hadn't wanted children up until that point. Even then, I wasn't even sure if I wanted children. But what I did have was a thriving business that I'd been steadily growing since 2016. I didn't have the big milestones that I was worried about because they hadn't been things that I was focusing on in my life. So during that time, I took a step back from Instagram. I unfollowed the people who were making me feel like I wasn't good enough, and instead I focused my attention on finding evidence that the life that I desired existed. So I looked at all the couples who got together later in life. I looked at the women who were having children in their late 30s, early 40s. I focused on the fact that I'd enjoyed travelling in my 20s and therefore didn't have a house deposit, and I stopped shaming myself for not being a homeowner. Now this was good for a long time, this worked. However, there was a point a few weeks ago where I realised that I'd fallen back into those traps, where I felt like I was comparing myself again, where I felt like I was spending a lot of time watching proposal videos, watching gender reveals, seeing pregnancy announcements, and I didn't realise how much it was impacting my mind until the moment I realised that I'm going to be 40 in 5 years, and suddenly I felt like, oh my god, where have my 30s gone? Now I'm behind again. So this time, instead of thinking to myself, I'm just going to unfollow people that make me feel bad about myself, I knew that I needed to go cold turkey. I knew that I needed a complete break from social media. I needed to step away, and however much I wanted to be scrolling on my phone first thing in the morning, I needed to get rid of the apps because they were damaging my mental health. They were making me feel bad about myself, and I don't need to feel bad about myself or about the life that I've created for myself up until this point. And I also know myself well enough to know that going cold turkey is the only thing that works. Back in 2015, after I'd been a smoker for quite a few years and I tried quitting smoking multiple times, I hit a point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was about halfway through a 3-week road trip from Cairns to the most northern point of Australia, and I was just not feeling good. Plus, cigarettes were ridiculously expensive. I was spending all this money on something that was damaging my health just out of habit. And I knew that if I tricked myself into saying, oh, I'll just smoke socially, or allowing myself cigarettes at a party, or allowing myself a cigarette when I had a drink, I knew that I would never quit. So I went cold turkey, and 10 years later, I can safely say I haven't touched a cigarette since. That is exactly what I needed to do with social media. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to be off social media for 10 years because obviously I have a business and I have things that I need to put on social media to run that business. But I wanted to give myself 30 days where I would log out, delete the apps off my phone, and just focus on me and my life. And let me tell you, it has changed things in ways that I didn't even expect it to change things. So as you are watching this, it has been 4 weeks since I logged out of social media, and let me tell you, it has been incredible. Once I got past the first 2 days where all I wanted to do was pick up my phone and scroll, and I got past the moments where I felt like, oh, I wonder what my friends are doing, or I wonder if this person's had their baby yet, or any of that kind of thing, and where I had a little bit of FOMO, first 2 days out of the way, it has changed my life. The clarity I have around what I want to achieve in my life, around my goals, the discipline I have into actually being productive and actually working towards achieving my goals on a daily basis. The quality of sleep I am getting. I had not slept properly for months, and there were multiple times where I had to rely on sleeping tablets to help me get to and then stay asleep. I have slept better in the last 4 weeks than I ever have in my entire life. My brain is no longer clogged with what anyone else is doing in their life. I no longer feel that sinking feeling of, oh, I haven't done this yet, or oh, I'm not there yet. I don't feel behind in my life, despite the fact I'm 34 years old, I'm single, I'm child-free, and I'm living with my mum. I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be. I'm proud of the things that I've achieved in my business so far, in my career. I'm starting a whole new career, and I've actually had the time, the space, and the energy to dedicate to working on building that new career and that new business for myself, which I had been talking about doing for months, but somehow found more time to scroll than actually do the things that I desired. I've worked out, I've got more energy, I've drunk more water, I've spent less money, I have less anxiety, I'm less stressed. I just feel generally happier on a daily basis, and the only other thing that has changed is me logging out of social media. So if you are feeling behind in your life, it is time for you to take a break. I'm not saying you need to take a break forever, but challenge yourself for 30 days, log out of social media and use that time to do something that is beneficial, something that makes you feel good. Go for a walk, go to the gym, take yourself out on a date, go to the cinema. Do something that doesn't involve you investing your time and mental energy on other people's lives, on watching how other people are living their lives. And I promise you, this is the quickest way to stop feeling like you are behind. Instead of looking at what other people have achieved, other people's milestones, the things that they've ticked off in their 30s, focus on who you are, on what you have done. Focus on your self-care, on doing things that bring you joy, on hanging out with people that make you feel good about yourself. Start a new hobby, try something different. Explore new environments, make new friends, have different conversations. These things will stop you feeling behind in your 30s, and it will be a complete game changer to how you feel about yourself, about your life, and how productive you're able to be. It will give you so much mental clarity and such a clearer headspace because your thoughts will not be bombarded by other people's lives. Trust me on this one. If you are feeling behind in your 30s, this is how you stop. Give yourself that break. Challenge yourself for the next 30 days. Log out, focus on you, stop feeling behind.